Hello everyone, welcome back to another video tutorial lesson from the AP3X CSEC online tutorial hub tutorial platform. My name is Akin Peart, your math instructor. I am a certified instructor working at a private institution that is located here in Jamaica. Should you need to know the name of that institution, you will find various information regarding the institution in the comment section or in the description of this video. Welcome back to another session and another review assessment paper, the first of the year 2025-2026. Now in today's video tutorial, we're going to be going through an extensive work paper that was constructed by myself here. And after 3 weeks, my students were assessed based on the topics that were taught to them. And throughout the past 3 weeks, we have been doing split topics. I have introduced the concept of maths fundamentals, where we got as far as operations with fractions. We also did a bit of consumer arithmetic, where we got as far as profit and loss. I also introduced the concept of measurement, where we got as far as the area of triangles. And also we did a little bit of coordinate geometry, where we got as far as finding the gradient of a line using the graph and using the formula. And I also believe that we went as far as finding the length of a line. Now, oh yes, and we also did a bit of algebra, where we introduced the first two laws of indices using the power rule and the coefficient rule. So in this complete paper, you are going to get a chance to understand not only getting the solutions to the questions, but the thought process that goes behind getting to the solutions. I have already marked my students' paper, and I've already done the statistical report, and therefore this allows me then to make this video, and I will be able to highlight to you some of the things that I saw on some of my students' exam paper. And so everything that I say to you in this video is more or less based off statistical evidence of what students have been doing and will continue to do if we don't take the effort to correct these mistakes. Of course, if this is the first time here on the channel, my name is Akin, and I provide you with contents tutorials to enhance your learning at the CSEC, CCSLC, SEA, EDXL, City and Guilds level examination. All right, so we're going to get right into it. But before we do so, please ensure that you are subscribed to the channel for weekly uploads. I will post 2, maybe 3 videos per week. If you like the content that is presented here on the channel, do not forget to leave a like. Leave your comments down in the comment section if you have learned something new, if you've made a mistake and now you've learned what to do next time. And of course, share if you care, guys. There's a lot of persons like yourself who may be struggling with this area of the math and will need a video or need a platform like this that will enhance their learning. All right, so please share it on your social media platforms and to your contacts so we can help the channel to grow. All right, so we're going to take our time and spend at least an hour to an hour and a half. The exam's duration was an hour and a half. Each group of students were allowed to pick 3 questions based on what was being taught to them. But in this video, we're going to be going through all 5 so that everyone will have a comprehensive understanding of how to work these questions, and then you can start preparing for the next upcoming assessment. All right, so let's get right into it. All right, so as you can see here, very straightforward. It says here that each pool, let's zoom it up a little bit here, guys. So it says here, give me a sec. So it says here, instructor, Mr. Peart, October 10th, 2025. That's when the exam was administered. Each pool of students is expected to answer only 3 questions that will accumulate to 33 points. That means every mark that they get is worth 3%. All right. And all students must answer this section because all the students in my pool were doing fundamentals at the time. So let's get right into it here, ladies and gentlemen. And as expected and as per usual, we're going to be starting off with the fractions here. All right, so let's get right into it here, guys. So we're going to start off with working out what is 2. Let me just get this a little bit bigger here for you guys. Okay, all right, here we go. Oh, we're good now. So here we're going to start off with 2 and 3/4 minus 1 and 2/3 plus 3.5. All right. This is as far as I got to up on at the time when the test was administered. I didn't get to multiplication or division or the application of PEMDAS using fractions. So this is what my students were required to do. All right. So students, here's how we do this question. Once you see a mixed fraction, step 1 is to convert your mixed fractions to an improper fraction. And we can simply do this by using the number at the bottom, which is the denominator, and we're going to multiply it by the number at the side and add the numerator to the result. So 4 times 2 is going to give us 8. 8 plus 3 is going to give us 11/4. Minus 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 2 is 5/3. Plus 2 3s is 6. Plus 1 is 7/2. All right. And then from here now, step 2 is to go ahead and find your LCM. And your LCM here is going to be equal to 12. There are a few students who would have used 24 because what I've told them is that the easiest way to find the LCM is to go ahead and multiply these 3 numbers at the bottom. All right. But I also did explain to them that when you do that, there are going to be cases where when you multiply all 3 numbers at the bottom, you end up with a multiple as opposed to the lowest common multiple. Now, what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to get the lowest number here that will make the simplification a lot easier. So in this case here, when I multiply the 2 largest number, which is 4 times 3, I end up with 12. And it so happens that 2 can actually go into 12. So I'm going to therefore then use 12 as my LCM. Now, if you did use 24, in the last half, you would have had to simplify the equivalent fraction of the result, right? So you're going to end up with the same answer. Now, I do take off marks if my students do not simplify the answer to its lowest term. So I found that quite a few of my students lost half mark for the simplification process. So here we go. Now we're going to say 4 into 12 goes 3 times. We're going to times it up by 3 here. And 3 into 12 goes 4 times. We're going to times it up by 4 here. And 2 into 12 goes 6 times. We're going to times it up by 6. All right. And you can always double check your answer, guys. When you're working out, you just take your time and focus, guys. All right. This video is not just about the answers, but it's about teaching you so many different things about approaching a paper. Take your time, work through the paper, stay focused. 3 times 11 is going to give us 33. Minus 4 times 5 is going to give us 20. And 6 sevens is going to give us 42. All right. Now, if we go ahead and we do the calculation for what is on the line, you will find here that the answer is actually 65/12 because 33 minus 20 is 13. And 13 plus 42, that's 55, pardon me, over 12. My apologies, guys. All right, now here, if you leave it here, for me, I remove half mark, right? Because all fractions must be expressed to its lowest term where possible. So here, in order to get the full 3 marks awarded for this question, Then we're going to go ahead and say 12 into 55 will go approximately 4 times. And that will leave us with a result of 7 over 12. Right? And this becomes our final solution. Right? So that is how you approach the question. Now, what I did find is that quite a few students, not quite a few, maybe a few, they try to apply the PEMDAS. And in this case, whether you apply PEMDAS or not, you're going to end up with the same answer. Applying PEMDAS in this case is simply going to make your work process a bit longer. So since as the rules for subtraction is the same as the rules for addition, we can go ahead and process the calculation for all three at the same time. All right. So make note of that, guys. If you have gotten that right, thumbs up to you. And if you've gotten it incorrect, make the necessary corrections and ensure that this does not reoccur in your second assessment. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Now it says here that we should calculate the value of negative 13 plus 5, open bracket 25 plus 45 divided by 3 squared minus 3 times 8 in bracket minus 12. So let's write that down, guys. It is negative 13. Pardon me here. Just a second, guys. I think my device might be freezing. Negative 13 plus 5, open bracket, 25 plus 45 divided by 3 squared minus 3 times 8 minus 12. Now, bear in mind, guys, that these questions don't generally come on a CXC paper, but these are fundamental questions that will strengthen your core. It will allow you to understand the rules of mathematics, the application, when, where, how, and why. You can easily lose a mark. You can easily lose or get a question incorrect if you fail to obey the rules. Now, what I did instruct majority of my students to do, and just like I've done in all my online tutorials, you will find a playlist that is pinned in the comments. You can have access to all of those tutorials via that playlist link that is in the comments. If you check out my PEMDAS tutorial online video or my online session, you would see where I told my students that when you're working questions like these that requires steps or rules, you want to ensure that you go ahead and you kind of, let me just try to zoom up, guys. Okay, let's try to see if we can zoom up here. Good. So what you want to do, guys, is that you want to just write right above here, PEMDAS, right? DAS. All right. Now, when you get questions like this, you want to take your time, guys. Because if you rush it, you're going to make a mistake. And I think maybe about 35 to about 40% of my students got this incorrect. It started to confuse them. I wasn't sure why, because this was thoroughly discussed as it relates to how you approach these questions. So step one is to look and to see if there are any parentheses in the question. And as you can see here, there is a clear indication of a parentheses with a bunch of operations inside. Now, inside that parentheses, the PEMDAS rule still applies. So inside, you'll see that there's an exponent. And there's also addition, division, multiplication. So we're going to follow the PEMDAS rule inside the parentheses. One of the mistakes that I found that students make is that they do that 25 to 45. Remember that addition is that you're going to go ahead and you're going to change this exponent here to 9. And at the same time, I could go ahead and just follow suit and just do the multiplication at the same time as well. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write negative 13 plus 5, open bracket. I'm going to rewrite my 25 plus, I'm going to write back my 45 here. I'm going to convert my exponent 3 squared to 9. And at the same time, I'm just going to get rid of that multiplication. Since as that's what comes next, I could save a line and do 24 here. Close my bracket, minus 12. All right? Like I told you in the video tutorial, when you get to an advanced level, you may be able to do 2 or 3 things at the same time with experience. Moving right along, we're then going to move on now to looking at the division right here. All right. And again, notice that I multiplied before I divided, even though the division came before the multiplication. In this case, because of this subtraction sign here, there wasn't really a battle between who goes first. So whether I had divided first or multiplied last, or multiplied first or divided last, it wouldn't have mattered in this situation. So for those of you who thought that I broke the rule a while ago, I did not. All right. I just kind of altered the rule a little bit just in my favor. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to say negative 13 plus 5, open bracket, 25 plus 45 divided by 9 is 5, minus 24, close bracket, minus 12. Now at this stage, what I also found was that quite a few students got frustrated and added this. Some of them got negative 18, some of them got negative 8. And so you've got to understand, guys, that once you have a parenthesis, let's pay attention here, guys. If we have a parenthesis here, and there are stuff inside the parentheses, but if you look closely, that there's a number that immediately precedes the parentheses, and there's no sign between them, then that number that immediately precedes the parentheses will be used to multiply what is inside the parentheses. So what a lot of students did is that they got to this point and then they made that brutal error of turning this bracket here to a plus. Some of you guys added minus 13 to 5. Here's what you guys needed to do to gain this full 3 marks. So you would have gone ahead then and you would have gone ahead to write down your negative 13. Okay, just give me a second here, guys. I think my device is freezing. So negative 13 plus 5, open bracket. We're going to finish working out what is in the bracket. And notice that I could remove this bracket and put a time sign, but I'm going to keep the bracket here, right? 25 plus 5 is 30, and 30 minus 24 is 6, minus 12. Quite a few students got to this position, and then they added the minus 13 to the 5. All right, remember that even though we are finished with what is inside the parentheses, we've got to use the number that immediately precedes the parentheses to multiply what is on the inside. So to wrap this question up, we're going to have negative 13 plus 30 minus 12. And if you type that onto our calculator all at once, you will find here that your answer works out to be negative 5, or I think it's positive 5. My apologies. Let's see. Negative 13 plus 30, that's going to give us 17. 17 minus 12, that's going to give us positive 5. All right. So there you go, guys. That is what was required to get the full 3 marks for that question. So I hope you now understand what you need to do next time. Right? So you just got to pay attention. It's a very simple question when you get to intermediate level, but at the beginner's level, this confuses many students. All right. So please make note of that. Let's move right along to the next question. Again, I needed to give my students an opportunity to get as much marks as they can. So I had to squeeze in a little bit of integers just to see if they remember the whole concept of adding and subtracting, the owing and having. And if you guys remember that I dropped a tutorial online video regarding owing and having, this is an aspect of mathematics that has plagued many students and is still plaguing many students at the basic to the beginner's level. All right, so let's get into this here. Both adults, students, everyone is being plagued by this very simple math here. So here we go. We have 2 minus 13 plus 18 minus 11 minus 5 minus 7 minus 19. Pardon me, guys. Minus 19. Give me a sec. Minus 19 plus 6. All right, let's zoom up here so we can get a better view of what we're doing here. All right, let me just grab ink here. Now, very interesting. I did find that Students usually get these questions right in the class, but for some reason, when they go on the exam, they make a mess of it. And quite a few students got it right, obviously, but there were some interesting results that I saw. And many students took a different approach to it. I guess everybody's comfortable with a certain way of working the math. But for me, I find that the whole association of the numbers grouping makes a lot more sense. So what I always encourage students to do is that when you see questions like this where you have to add a bunch of negative and positive numbers to each other, you could do it one at a time. You could say 2 minus 13. What I don't want my students to do is to just type it onto the calculator and write down the answer that it's negative 29. We don't want that, because when you do that, then you lose out on understanding how to get to the answer. So we want to avoid that, guys. We want to avoid doing that for the futuristic benefit. So go ahead and place this into groups of 2. I did in fact saw on about 2 papers, I believe, students created clashes. There was no clashes in this question. There was no signs clashing with any sign, but yet students found a way to create a clash. And it was quite interesting, because I've always told my students, and I've told everybody on my channel, that marking papers for me is the most important aspect of being a teacher, because you get a chance to understand how the students are thinking, what the students are thinking about, where the weak areas are. If it is that you're talking in class and you're hearing, what are they hearing? How are they hearing it? Is a lot of information that you can gather from marking papers. So teachers, ensure that you put your effort into marking your students' papers correctly, and so you can assist them and make recommendations to improve their learning. So here we go. 2 take away 13, that's going to give us negative 11. We've discussed this already, that negative numbers are an amount that you owe, positive numbers are an amount that you have. So in this case, if I pay only 2 that I have from the 13 that I owe, I will still owe 11. Now 18 minus 11, that's going to give us here positive 7. And then in the third bracket here, we owe twice. So we owe 5 and we owe 7. So we end up owing an amount of 12. Bracket number 4, the final bracket over here, negative 19 plus 6. I owe 19 and I'm only able to pay the 6 that I have. So I'm still going to owe 13. At this stage then, all you have to do is to just place this into groups of 2 again. And then we're going to have negative 7 plus, negative 11 plus 7. That's going to give us negative 4. And then in bracket number 2, we owe twice, so that's minus 13, minus 12, minus 13, that's minus 25. And then finally then, guys, as you can see here, that if you owe 4 and you owe 25, you end up owing 29. All right? So congrats to the students who got that question right and was able to execute the fundamental principles of adding directed numbers. Good job to you. And for the ones who took a different approach and ended up with the incorrect answer, I hope that this added tutorial video gives you the official clarity that you desire. All right? So let's get right back onto the next question. We don't want to make this video too long, but I also do not want to rush the video so that you guys lose out on the opportunity to learn. Okay? All right, good. Now, that would have garnered you a total of 11 points. That would be 3 for the fraction, 3 for this question, that's 6, 8. Okay, so we're going to get to this question. So we're already 8 points out of 33. We're not doing too bad. All right? Now here, we were given a decimal arithmetic to do. That is 0.08471 times 1.215 divided by 3.1121. Now, the objective of this was to get the students to understand that a lot of the times when you are doing arithmetic, especially with decimals, you're going to end up with some very long numbers, right? Long numbers. And so I'm going to grab a pen that's beside me. Give me a second, guys. All right, so I'm going to grab a pen here and I'm going to pull up my calculator and we're going to type this number in. So let me just write these numbers down so I don't have to switch screens again. So that's 0.8, 0.08471 times 1.215 divided by 3.121. Now, my students were encouraged to use calculators. They were also told to bring calculators with them because I knew that this was going to be a question that we would have to eventually get to. All right. So we're going to grab our calculators here, guys. Follow me. I'm going to pull up my calculator here. Let's type in the figure. So all you guys had to do was just go on your calculators. I believe some of my students were also allowed to use the phone calculators as well. So we're going to go here and type it in. We're going to go ahead and say 0.08471 multiplied by 1.215 divided by 3.1121. Once you press equal, you should get a very long decimal number. Now, this decimal number, you don't necessarily have to write out everything, because I would have wanted maybe just about maybe the first 8 or so, or maybe the first 5. That would be fine. So 0.03307, and I'm just going to add 1 more or 2 more digits just to ensure that I have enough for the rounding process. Because more than likely, based on the question, I won't be required to round off anything to more than just 2 or 3 decimal places or significant figures. So based on the solution that I just got here, guys, let's just grab it here. Let's go back over to our writing pad. So here, the digit that came out was that the answer after the multiplication process was 0.0330717. I really don't need that much digit, but they would have gotten 1 point just to type it on the calculator. Believe it or not, they get 1 point. Let's look at it, guys. Let's look at it. I believe I gave them 1 point just to type it on the calculator and write down the answer. So I gave them, say here, let's see here, 1 point. As you can see right here, I gave them 1 point just to type it on the calculator. Then I gave them another mark to round it off to 2 DP and another mark to round it off to 3 SF. So let's get to that part here. So if we want to round this number off to 2 decimal places, like discussed in our decimal video, which you would have had access to over the course of the past 3 weeks, your decimal places are the digits that holds the position after the decimal point. So as you can see here, that decimal point is right here. And so my first decimal place would have been the 0. The second one would have been the 3. That's decimal places. It holds the position behind the decimal point. So if I draw my line here and I check the digit that comes after, you'll notice that this digit here is actually less than 5. So this would mean that all I have to do here is just ignore the digits that comes after that line. Therefore, my answer would have simply been equal to 0.03. That's how you would have gotten that 1 point there. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to erase these markings that I have right here. I'm going to put back my decimal point right here. I'm going to erase these markings. All right. Because I want you guys to understand what 30717. Let me just write that back. 30717. 30717. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to repeat the process now for significant figures. Now, the trick, and as expected, my students confused significant figures with decimal places, as expected, because I know that this has been a problem for many persons when you teach them both. Now, with significant figures, we made a thorough discussion on when zeros are significant. And so we discussed that if zeros or 0 appear before a non-zero digit, we cannot count them a part of our rounding process. So my first significant value would have obviously been 3. So this would be my first, this would be my second, this would be my third. I would then draw the line right here, check the digit that comes after. This number is greater than 5, so I'll add a 1 to this 0 right here. And so my answer then would have been 0.0331. And that would have given me the extra mark there. All right. So get with the program, guys. It is not difficult. These are some simple one more. I find that quite a few of my students. I believe that I got about 14 or 15 students that met the pass mark of 45%. That was the target for this test. If you got over 45, you would have been considered as a student that has somewhat of a not rock solid, but you would have had a good grasp of the concept taught. I found that quite a few of my students got 44, 42, 43, 39, 38. And remember that every mark is worth 3%. So when I tell my students that these questions, though very simple, if you get them incorrect, they can cost you heavy percentage. I could have had at least another 8 or 9 more students getting over the pass mark if they had gotten questions like this correct. But nevertheless, we must move right along. I do hope that you guys get it now, and so we can move forward with making the corrections and doing better in the next assessment. Okay? All right. Now, if you notice, guys, I'm taking my time. I'm walking through the paper because essentially a lot of you guys are making a lot of mistakes on these exams. And when you get to CSEC level, you're going to have much more difficult questions that is going to challenge you. All right. So go ahead, guys, and take a screenshot of the working note if you have not writing. In fact, you guys should have in your earpods or your earphones. You should be having a cup of tea or a nice glass of juice and just sitting down and observing how these questions are evaluated. So I hope you guys are you've found this video at a time that's convenient and appropriate for learning. Because if you're watching this video for just watching its sake, then you have already defeated the purpose of learning from this video. You guys need to have your pencils out, pens out, papers out, everything out as you're watching this video. Even though it might be an hour and a half to 2 hours long, you should be sitting around this video watching it for at least 2 hours, because you should be pausing, working out, making the corrections as I go along, without just watching out the entire video. Even if you have to watch this video for 3 days straight, it's very important that going forward, these mistakes do not reoccur. Okay? All right, let's get into it then. We're going to move on next. Now, that would have gotten us 11 points. All you guys would have needed now was 4 more points, 4 more marks to get yourself over the 45% pass mark, believe it or not. All right? On this channel, we're going to share a lot of tips and insights and advice how you can pass a math exam without really having to do everything. It's a strategy, okay? Strategy. But we're going to talk about that in later tutorials. So ensure that you are subscribed to the channel. Now we're going to be moving on to question 2 here. And it says that only pool 1 and pool 4 should answer this question because they were the only group of students that I was teaching consumer arithmetic at the time. So we're going to get right into it here. All right, let's try to get this zoomed up here. Okay, here we go. All right, now, a tailor earns a basic wage of $3,280 for a 38-hour week. It was also added that any overtime worked is paid at time of the quarter, which the value of a time of the quarter is 1.25. And from this information, you are to calculate 1, the tailor's basic rate of pay. If you notice also, guys, that I have placed basic rate in bold and I've placed also gross wage in bold. That is usually what CSEC does whenever they want you to understand that this is a very important part of the question. So basic rate, this is when I bold that particular phrase, the importance of that is to say, hey, do you remember what is basic rate? Now, I don't have a tutorial on consumer arithmetic as yet because my online students have not yet touched this topic, but you will be seeing this in the future, in maybe a couple weeks from now, so stay tuned. But let us recall that a basic wage is the amount of, well, let's not talk about basic wage, let's talk about basic rate, since as that's the question. So for basic rate is related to the amount of money you receive per hour. So it is dollars per hour. All right. You have to remember that, guys. If you cannot remember what basic rate is, then you're going to struggle, as quite a few students did. It's quite interesting that this particular question revealed that one of the main problems that most CSEC students have across the island is comprehension. Comprehension skills is one of the challenge. A lot of students have expressed to me over the years that they do not like worded questions. It is a challenge for them. And as you can see, when you see the calculation to get this 1 mark, you'll realize that it isn't really a challenging question. Students just do not know what the words or the phrases mean, and so they are not able to interpret whether to add, multiply, subtract, or divide. So guys, basic rate implies the amount of money that you receive per hour. Okay, per hour. So now we know this information then. If the wage received was 3,200 for a total of 38 hours, it would simply mean that the calculation for this would have been 3,200. Pardon me here, guys. It would have been 3,280 divided by the amount of hours worked in order to get that amount of money. So notice, guys, if you think about it, you worked for 38 hours to get a total of 3,200. You would have had to be paid a certain amount of money per hour. So if you divide your income earned by the amount of hours worked to gain that income, then your answer simply would have been about, let me just grab my answer sheet here. Hold on, guys. I don't want to take too long. I don't want to have to run to my calculator every second because I do have the answer sheet here with me. So this would have worked out to be $86.32. That's $86, pardon me. So that's $86.32. All right, $86.32. And that's it, guys. That's all that you needed to do. Divide the 3,280 by 38. Now, believe it or not, I found quite a few students subtracting the 38 from the 3,280, adding the 38 to the 3,280, and even as far as multiplying the 38 by the 3,280. Now, when you see a student do something other than what is expected, it goes to show that a student simply does not comprehend what the question is asking. And if you're unable to comprehend the question, even when the math is easy to calculate, you're going to get it incorrect because comprehension is correlated to your computation skills. All right. So hopefully you guys understand that. Yeah. Next question then. Gross wage. Let's make some information about gross wage. Now you're going to see this phrase come up a lot. This gross wage phrase come up a lot. And you'll find gross wage coming up in question that is related to commission. You'll find gross wage coming up when it comes to salaries and wages, because gross wage pretty much is an accumulation. Well, basically what I say, it is basic wage / salary plus extra. That's what it means. Gross wage meaning extra. It also means in the accounting term that is the amount of income received prior to tax deduction. But in this case, this question isn't related to tax. This question is just related to overtime. So what this means then is that this is a basic wage question aligned with an overtime question. So what this means then is that it's going to be basic wage plus overtime. So our job now is to figure out some stuff here. It says that we want the gross wage of the tailor for a week where he worked 47 hours. Here's where the interpretation and comprehension comes in, paying attention to details. If the basic wage worked was 3,200 for 38 hours, what would have caused this worker to work for 47? Logical thinking meaning that there would have been some overtime worked. Well, maybe what I could have done in the question was that I could have said during a particular week. That would have maybe given the question a bit more details and more emphasis. But based on how I teach during my classes, a lot of my students will know that I've explained this multiple times, that usually when they state the hours up here, Usually that's your standard hours. Anything over that is going to be called overtime. So my first bit of calculation would start by me calculating what is my OT. So my OT here would have been simply equal to 47 minus 38. That would have given me an answer of 9 hours. So what that 9 hours means is that I've worked 9 hours overtime. Let's just zoom it up a little bit here. It's a little bit fine for you. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's make sure that you guys are seeing it clearly. All right, so let me just zoom. Okay, can't zoom it out. Okay, here we go. So that's 9 hours, guys. Now it did mention that at I'm so sorry. Moving my screen. Sorry, guys. So it says any overtime work is going to be paid at time and a quarter. Notice again that I've bold time and a quarter. So right there and then I know that some multiplication process is going to take place because I'm earning. I wouldn't need to divide because I'm earning, guys. So once you're earning means that you're going to be getting more, and more means to multiply or to potentially add. But you wouldn't want to add hours to a time. Hours is the unit of measurement for the time is hours, and unit of measurement for the earning is dollars. So there would be no point in me adding 9. So it's just like it has to make sense when you're working the questions out, guys. So that's going to be 9 multiplied by time on the quarter. So that's 1.25. And remember that you're being paid per hour, guys. Overtime is paid per hour. I know that quite a few students may be young and you're not experiencing the work field, but understand that when you're being paid per hour. So notice that this question is directly connected to this one, because now I have to multiply this by 86.32. All right. So when we go ahead, guys, and we do all that, then we're going to end up with an answer here, I believe, and confirm with me, guys, $971.10. $971.10. Let me just write that a little better. $971. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. $971.10. Don't know what's going on with my pen. 10 cents. All right, so $971.10. Let me just write that a little better. My stylus is kind of giving me some issues. $971.10. All right. Now that is going to be your overtime. Now you're now going to get the gross wage, because remember we stated earlier that the gross wage is your basic wage, which is going to be $3,280 that you would have earned for the 38 hours worked, plus the 9 hours. You would have accumulated a total of $971.10. Therefore, your total income or total gross for that week would have accumulated to $4,251.10. All right. So that is the thought process, guys, that goes on during this question. This is how you attack these questions, and it doesn't get any harder than this for CSEC. You may get a little bit of twist here or there, but with a little bit of practice and experience, and you would have been watching a lot of my videos, then you would have been quite A-okay to work this question out. All right. So guys, moving forward, if you have gotten this far in the video, moving forward, guys, always check out these review tutorials, because these tutorials will give you clear, vivid, almost a smooth path towards getting to the answer. All right. So please ensure that you guys stay tuned weekly for these tutorial videos. All right. Let's get right into it here. Now, next one is that I introduced commission as well. I wanted to make up some marks. I had to add more worded questions here. I believe that this exam was quite balanced. That's just in my opinion. But let me know in the comments, guys. Do you think that this was a balanced exam? Do you feel like it was good? Do you feel like it was extremely hard? Was it extremely challenging? Did you study? Because remember that if you're gonna say it's hard, then it would have meant that you would have studied and you would not have seen anything that you've studied for, because the only way you can say that this exam was hard and get away with it is if, well, at least the only way you can say that it was hard and get away with it is that if you had studied and you didn't see anything. But if it's challenging because you were not practicing and you were not reviewing the material, then your statement there would have been null and void. All right, let's move on next. An insurance salesman earns a gross salary of 18,380, which is inclusive. And if you notice again, guys, this is what CXC does. I notice that they do it a lot. They start to highlight certain words in the question so that the student can understand the importance of the numbers and how they are connected. So with the salesman earning a gross salary once again, so you see that word's gross, we spoke about it earlier, that gross meaning that it's an accumulation of an income. It means something extra with your regular, with your basic salary or basic wage. It is inclusive. So with this sentence here, a salesman earns a gross salary of 18,380, which inside this money is inclusive of $2,144 for commission earnings. So this $2,144 is in the 18,380. Now, if his commission rate is 8%, that means that's how he gets his extra income. Calculate the following. Students fall into the trap of just doing this whole 8 over 100 times 2,144. There was quite a number of students that did this 8 over 100 multiplied by 18,380. It was just all over the place. It was absolutely insane. It was crazy to see that many students are struggling so much with the interpretation. Now, the ability for you to recognize when a question is in reversed compared to when a question is straightforward is important. Remember that normally in the textbooks, whenever you read a textbook or you take a question from a textbook or a formula sheet, the general standard is that they are going to ask you to calculate the commission. So they'll say commission is equal to X% over 100 multiplied by total sales. If it's the first time you're seeing this formula, guys, make a note of it. Okay, that's the formula for commission. Commission, the amount of income earned of commission, is based on the commission percentage divided by 100 multiplied by the sales that you make. Remember, the idea or the concept behind commission is that you are being paid a certain amount from the income brought into the company. So if you say, for example, you make $1,000 for me and I'm giving you a 10% commission, then it means that for every $1,000 that you make for me, I will be giving you $100. That's the idea. Now, what I always encourage students to do, especially when they get questions like these, and I've said it before for many, many years, and I'm saying it again, if you want to take the guesswork out of mathematics, practice to, let me write it down here for you, write down your formula, guys. Write down your formula. When you write down your formula, the formula pretty much dictates to you what to do. Should I multiply? Should I divide? Should I add? Should I subtract? Now, have a look at this question, guys. Let's take out the information that is most important to us here. Right? Let's take out the information that's important to us. What's important to us here is 1, the commission. C, already, we know, is equal to 2,144. That's what we know. So before I even look at what they're asking me here and here, I'm going to take out what I need. I don't want to know about the salesman. I don't want to know about anything else. I just want to know what information is important to me. So right here and then, I was told that it was inclusive of 2,144 of commission earnings, guys. Commission earnings. So right there and then, I know that the value of C is 2,144. I also know that X% is equal to 8. Or I should say AX is equal to 8%. And I also know that the gross salary, and remember that gross salary, let's just write it, gross salary is going, in this particular instance, gross salary is going to be salary plus commission. All right? So remember, we said gross salary is an accumulation of your regular income plus anything extra. This question is a commission question, so your commission would be considered as the extra. All right? So when you set it up like this now, you can now start to look at your comprehension skills then. So here, we're looking for one, his monthly salary. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for his salary. So if I take the gross income, which is 18,380, and I set it equal to salary, which is going to be X because I don't know what the salary is. We want his monthly. His monthly means his monthly salary. So I'm going to set salary to be equal to X plus the commission as told was 2,144. If I use my algebra skills of solving the equation, then you will find here that my answer will be equal to 18,380. Pardon me, hold on guys, give me a sec. So that's 18,380. And I'm going to carry this over here as a subtraction sign, 2,144. Because when you transpose a number across the equal sign, it's going to change to the opposite sign, and that's equal to X. So when I do the math here, you will find here that I end up with an answer of 16,236. 16,236, and that's equal to X. Therefore, I can confirm that my monthly, or the monthly of the salesman, monthly is equal to 16,236. Now, this is just me using my algebra skills and just using the formula to help me. When you do it like this, it shows the marker that you understand what you're doing. Now, you could have just basically common sense out the question and just understands that, hey, gross salary is inclusive of the tax. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract the 2,144 from the 18,380, and then I've gotten to the answer. So that would have been done, and you would have gotten your 1 mark. All right. So you don't have to do it as complicated as I did. But again, essentially, the learning process is important. All right. So formulas are important, guys, to work out questions that are in reverse. Now, for this next question here, we are looking for total sales. So this brings us back to this formula here. So let's go ahead and write this formula down. C is equal to X over 100 multiplied by total sales. All right, X over 100 multiplied by total sales. Now, like I said, guys, not to fall into the trap where many students do. Once they see a percentage question, they quickly put the percentage over 100 and times by one of those numbers. If you look here, guys, is that the question is in reverse because you're not being asked to calculate the commission. We already know what the commission is. So you're being asked to calculate a variable that is inside the equation, which is total sales. So if I take my 2,144 here and I place it under C, which is the commission, I'm then going to equate it to X, which is going to already be what we said is 8. So that's 8 over 100. And if I multiply that by total sales, which is exactly what I'm looking for, because this is where the question mark is, I would have set up an equation that can therefore lead me to my answer. So now if you look carefully, 2,144 will be equal to the only thing that I can do on the right side of this equation is to divide the 8 by 100. So if I divide that, I'm going to get 0.08 multiplied by total sales. Now, right here and then, 0.08 is tied to the variable total sales by multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is to divide. So I'm going to divide by 0.08, divide by 0.08. And if you cancel this here, you end up with total sales is going to be equal to the result of 2144 divided by 0.08, and you'd have gotten 26,800. Again, you guys don't have to do it like this. You guys can really common sense it out, twist and turn the question, as long as you show some sort of mathematical evidence that's leading to the answer, then you guys should get your full marks. All right. But I had to use the opportunity in this video to show you the thought process. Remember, essentially, this video is not about the answer, it's about the thought process of getting to your answer. All right. So I do hope that you guys appreciate the excessive talking. I know that you guys probably are saying that Akin, you're talking a bit too much. However, it's very important to me and to the future audience that if you ever have troubles with these questions, it is essentially for the reasons that I've mentioned thus far. All right, here we go. Part C, Alyssa is an entrepreneur. Please take a screenshot, guys, if you haven't gotten it. If you haven't written it down, can rewind. I can replay the video or that part of the video and get the solution. All right. Now, Alyssa is an entrepreneur who buys and sells fruits. She spends $10,250 on 36 fruits. So in total, we don't know what type of fruit, and I don't think we care what type of fruit. We just know that the 36 fruits that she bought cost her a total of $10,250. So this might be an important part of the important information to take out. So there, I already know from here that the cost price is equal to 10,250. And I also know that the total fruits or the total quantity, you don't have to write all of this extra stuff, guys. This is just me being a teacher. And the total quantity is 36 fruits. All right, 36. All right, let's continue. Now, it says, and she sells them to make. So she wants to sell them, or she's selling them, and the objective for her is to gain a 17% profit. So she wants to add 17% of what she has spent onto what she spent, right? So she wants to find 17%. So we know that the profit percentage is equal to 17%. That's what we know. Now, considering that we don't know what the actual profit is, that's what I'm assuming that they want us to calculate. And as expected, they said it that they want the total profit that was made. So she basically wants to make 17% of that 10,250. So the calculation is very straightforward, that it's going to be 17% over 100 multiplied by what she spent. That amount will be added back to it. Now, the question says the total profit that was made. We don't want to know how much she got after she sold them. We know she's going to get back her money, but we're not interested in that. What we're interested in is what? The total profit that was made. So if you do the math here, 0 cancel 0. Oh, sorry. You can't cancel 2 zeros here. Sorry, guys. You can do that, or you can just go on your calculator, and when you type it in, if you go on your calculator and you type 17 divided by 100, let's do that just here. 17, let's clear this here. So 17 divided by 100 multiplied by 10,250. Oh, okay. Let's delete 10,250 equal 1,742 and 0.5. So that's 0.50 cents, pretty much. So that's going to be equal to 1,742. Just a second here, guys. Let me grab my pen. Okay, here we go. So that's going to be equal to $1,742.50. This represents the profit that was made. Now, had the question stated that we wanted to know what is the total amount she accumulated after the sale, then we just add this back to this here to get that amount, but we're not interested in that. So that would have given you your 2 marks there. All right, moving right along. The selling price of each fruit. I found quite a bit of students actually having an understanding of how to get the price of one fruit, but they divided this by 36. We don't want to know what the price of each fruit when she bought them. That's when you would have to divide the cost price by 36. You'd have to divide the total selling price by 36. So now, this is where for this part of the question, you'd have to add 10,250 to $1,742.50. And when you add those together, you're going to get $12,144 and 60 cents. Or, and 50 cents, pardon me. Well, I'm not sure. What did we just get, guys? Let me check my calculator. Well, on my paper here, I made a mistake. I wrote 1,764. So let me just add this 10,250 to it, because I know you guys may be wondering what's going on. So it's 11,992. I'm taking the answers from my answer sheet. So I would have made an error. I wrote 10,380, but on the actual question, it is saying 10,250. Let's double check on that right here. Okay. So I made a mistake on my answer sheet. Nevertheless, no problem, because I know you guys probably wondering, what am I talking about? So it's a mistake, guys. So it's 10,250 plus 1,142.50. This becomes 11,000. Let's double check that again. 11,992.50. 11,992.50. So 11,992.50. My apologies, guys. Okay. Taken from my answer sheet. All right. So this would have been the amount of money that she collected after selling back all 36 fruits. That is inclusive of her profit. So therefore, then we can easily calculate that 11,992 would have been easily divided by 36 to get the cost of one fruit. So I'm going to go ahead then and grab this, divide this by 36, and you would have seen that each fruit was sold for 333.13 cents, rounded out 333.13 cents. So 333.12 or 13 cents. All right. So one fruit was sold for $333.13. All right. And there's always an alternative for this. Like I said, guys, there is an alternative. We could actually divide. Okay, look at this. We could get this 333.313 another way. So this is what was the profit, right? We could have taken. So this is the alternative approach. Alternative. All right, for those of you who are thinking this way, you could have taken the $1,442, right, and 50 cents, and divided it by 36. That would have been, let's see what we would have gotten. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, 1,142.50. Let's clear this, 1,142.50 divided by 36. And that would have given us essentially that we would have made a $48 profit on each fruit, right? So 48.40. So we're going to get 48.40 here, 48.40. And then guess what happened now? Because we already know, or we could have gone ahead now. Let me just zoom up here. And this is a much more complicated approach. Then we would have to go ahead and divide. Let's grab a pen here. It's a bit messy on my screen. So we would have now had to go ahead now and say 10,250 divided by 36 as well. And that would have given us 10,250 divided by 36. 10,250 divided by 36. That would have given us 284.72. 284.72. So 284.72. And if we add both of these together, it should give us the original value of 333.13. So we're going to go ahead and add 48.40 to the result, 48.40. So plus 48.40. Would have gotten a relative answer. Whoops, sorry, 48.40. And look at that, guys. We got 333.12, which is relatively close to the original answer. So there's pretty much a lot of different ways to get around to the answer. It just depends on your thought process, guys, and how you go about this. Yes? All right. So I hope that you enjoy that. I know that you guys, let me know in the comments, guys. Do you prefer the first method or the second method, or you don't prefer it at all? Do you still hate worded questions? Let me know in the comments, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, let's continue, guys. We're almost out of we're at question 2. We're now going to move to question 3. All right, so we get into the interesting part of the paper. All right. I think I'm running out of charge here. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Well, I'm not going to speed it up. I need to finish this video properly. All right, so it's called question 3. Only pool 1 again on pool 4 is to answer these questions. We have to state the 3 parts of a variable. All right. Now, number of students got this one right because this is essentially the introduction to algebra. I would have spoken about what is a variable, the different parts of a variable, how to identify it. A few students only gave me what the parts are. but they never gave me an example and identified where it is. So we know that the three parts of a variable are one, the coefficient, right? And then the second part would have been the base or the variable. So it would have been the base slash variable. And the last part would have been the exponent, right? They're in no particular order, right? So that would have given him 1 mark, half mark each, right? Just by giving me the answer. I would have wanted an example to identify it. So if you had made up an example like 3x to the fourth, then you would have gotten that extra half mark by saying that this is the what? Exponent. This is the what? Base or variable. And then this is your coefficient. Right? It's very important you understand these parts because these essentially are the things that persons don't really understand about algebra. Why you have that very ambiguous rumor going around that algebra is this and algebra is that and algebra is difficult and all of that stuff. Once you understand the fundamentals of algebra, you'll realize that though it may be abstract, it is actually simpler than what many persons in the world think it is. All right, let's get into it then. Simplify the following expressions. We're right here, guys. If you're not following me on the screen, we're right here. Simplify the following expressions. We have 10x minus 2a minus 3ax plus 4a minus 9x plus 2. Let's go over here. 2ax. All right, 2ax. All right, so this one is kind of straightforward. I think that a lot of persons got this one right. A few persons still make an error, and you'd never believe where the error is coming from. The error isn't with the algebra. Believe it or not, the error is with integers. Students are still having challenges adding negative and positive numbers even at this point during the course study. So again, as I've always said, and I will continue to say, that the challenge you guys have in math isn't with the math. It is one, with the comprehension, two, with the transition of what you've learned from the basics into the intermediate and advanced. And I guess that's just what the real main issues are. Because with a question like this, all we have to do here is to put the x's beside each other. So we have 10x, and we have this minus 9x here. Then we have this minus 2a here. And we have this positive 4a here. And then we'd have had this negative 3ax here. And then we'd have had this 2ax here. And we would have discussed thoroughly in that algebra class, which I have not yet released. I have a video on it, but it's from last year. Soon,